Simple Man came back and says, "What's your favorite memory or thing that Steve Irwin has done?" Good question.
I think that my favorite. I mean, he's done so much, or he did so much, I should say. But still, my favorite piece of footage I've ever seen with Steve. Well, there's two things. I'm going to do two. One is the footage that I have no connection to, and that is one of his very first TV appearances. Before he was like, crikey, he was like very low key, very low and
Steve Irwin,
very Steve Irwin, not Steve Irwin.
Yeah.
But he had an olive python around his neck. Have you seen this?
I've
clip?
seen this one. Yeah, on the
and
news,
he's on
right?
the news, and he's just talking very mildly, talking. Oh, these are very tame, and then he's like, oh, I think. Can I see an angle? I think it's biting my neck,
Biting my neck.
And he just no reaction. And I just thought that was really cool for two reasons. Number one, he didn't react to the bite. Number two, he was so mellow. That was the real Steve Irwin, not the Steve Irwin you saw on TV, right? And everyone I know that knew Steve, and unfortunately, obviously I know his dad well and the family, but I never met Steve. But everyone I know, including Kevin McCurley, who provided animals for Steve when he did New York shows like the Tonight Show and stuff like that, or whatever, maybe Letterman, or whatever the New York late night shows where Kevin used to. Everyone said that Steve was just like he was on TV, just subdued,
Yeah.
And that's probably similar to me, right?
That's probably identical.
Probably, same thing. Like, in the vlog, I always say I'm me +1, not +10, but me +1. I think Steve was him +5.
Yeah.
But that was a different era. In that era, you
had to sell the energy, right?
Right. Now +5 makes you look fake.
Now things are more candid.
Right. People don't want you. They want you to be +1, not +5. So anyways, that was one. And then on a personal note, I was out at, so Terry was from Portland, Oregon. And she lived right down, or outside of Portland, Oregon. She lived right down the street from a guy named Brad Tillum, who has a place called Brad's Reptile World. And I was able to go to Brad's place. I've been there a number of times, but at one time I went there, and he showed me home video of Steve and Terry at his place, messing with a pygmy rattlesnake and a bunch of other stuff like that. And I was able to sit in the exact spot that Steve was playing with a pygmy rattlesnake and play with a pygmy rattlesnake.
Wow, that's so sick.
I mean, the exact spot. And so that was pretty special for me, just to think that, wow, because I still look at Steve as one of the greatest ever. You know what I mean?
I agree.
I think he will go down in history as one of the greatest wildlife guys in the world. And I don't think that people will say this all the time. Do you think that there'll be a next Steve Irwin? And I say no. There is no next Steve Irwin. Could Robert Irwin maybe take a little of that torch? Possibly, but it's a different world too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I've said this a million times. I don't think Steve Irwin thrives in today's environment. I think it was a different world back then. So,
and not only that, but even similar to, even if it's not animal related, like even music, like you'll never have Led Zeppelin again, right?
Exactly.
Because it's just a different world. There's too much content. So now it's a collective of all of us that make up.
Yeah, and there's going to be different, people like, obviously Coyote Peterson is making a big impact on the online world. And there'll be people like those people that pop up. But do I think that, right now you've got, Stephen Backshaw, which is he's great. But hardly anyone knows who he is.
Yeah, never heard of him.
You have obviously Matt Wright down in Australia. Very few people know who he is. You have some pretty interesting, animal guys that are in different countries that get a lot of attention, but us here in America don't know who they are. I think the last big animal guy, and this is a horrible tragedy actually, but the last big animal guy here in the United States that was big was probably two, which was Billy the Exterminator and the Turtle Man.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's a sad thing, because I remember, this is when I lost a lot of respect for the previous, again, you got to remember, networks their management turns over every couple years, so this is way back in the Marjorie Kaplan era of Animal Planet. And, no one knows who that is, but I do. She was the GM and president of Animal Planet for a number of years after Steve died. And I remember seeing a quote. I don't know if it was from Marjorie, but I think it was either from Marjorie Kaplan or it was from one of her people that said that the Turtle Man was the next Steve Irwin. And that's when I stopped watching Animal Planet.
There you
know,
go.
because I was like, you can't even put that guy together with Steve Irwin. You know what I mean? That's so. And then Billy the Exterminator, the same thing. A lot of people don't even remember who he was, but he had a show for a while on A&E that was pretty popular. And he was a exterminator. He was a pest guy. You know, and somehow he was related like this amazing animal lover. I just don't get it. And then of course you had Don Schultz, who was a South African living in L.A. Now works with Nitrous Circus.
Oh, wow.
And doing wingsuiting and stuff like that. He had a show called Wild Recon that was I liked the show, but it didn't perform well enough to get redone. And then you had the guy that was from Lord of the Rings. Darn it, what's his name? It doesn't matter. He had a show. Dominic Monaghan. He had a show called Dom's Wild Things that did well in Europe, but when they moved it here to the United States, it didn't do well. And then lastly, we had Brave Wilderness did their show on Animal Planet that tanked. So I think it's just a different world. You're not going to have another Steve Irwin because, you know, and I know, gosh, I went a long way on that one comment.
Isn't that crazy?
But yeah.
But that's good. That's what it's all about.
I'm passionate about that world too, you know, because I think educating and getting people excited about animals is so important. And Steve did a great job of it. And it's a bummer to me that other people aren't getting the opportunity. And when they did get the opportunity, it hasn't worked. So that tells me that there's no market for it on the traditional media.
Damn, son.
Can we rail this in?